Hi, Jim here from jbuddha.net. This is a quick little video of how I took this 1920s Atwater Kent radio and turned it into a 21st century internet radio. Hope you enjoy it. So this is my 1929-1930 Atwater Kent console radio. Believe it or not, I bought it about 25-30 years ago, and I did have the intentions of fixing it up and making it functional. When I first bought it, I plugged it in. It did work a couple times, and then all of a sudden one of the tubes went out on it, and I don't know what happened after that. So I had it down in the basement for probably the last 20 years, and I finally decided to pull it out and take this 1920s radio and turn it into a 21st century radio. So inside I have what's called a Raspberry Pi computer. This is the box for a Raspberry Pi 2. This is the newer model. I have one of these downstairs in the basement, which is actually the music server. What that means is that this is the size. Actually, it's a little smaller than this too. What that means is my music resides on the server down in the basement, and then through the network, this Raspberry Pi in here, which is the older model, acts as a player to play that music. So it draws and plays the music. What's nice is I have a Raspberry Pi up here. I have a Raspberry Pi original down in my TV room connected to my stereo. And then the Raspberry Pi down in the basement that acts as a server also has a player that comes with it, so I can play different station up here than downstairs in the TV room, and another third station across my intercom speakers. I have throughout the house, I have speakers on the wall here, and the Raspberry Pi down in the basement's tied into that system. So I can play different stations if I wish on any of those through those Raspberry Pis, or, and this is the nice part, which I usually do, is I sync them so they all play the same station or the same music. So the original front end of the radio was this, and you can see it was busted up. So my intentions were to take and kind of carve this piece out and put it in here, and this piece put it in here, and so on. But I decided, since I'm redoing this radio and turning it into a 21st century radio, that I redid the entire grid, or a new grid, out of some thin half-inch or quarter-inch oak veneered plywood. And I just traced the original onto there, and then filled in the broken ends. This piece here is metal. It was, I guess they tried to stain over it because it was supposedly had a wood grain. I wiped all that off and just put a standard beige metal paint on there. These knobs are the original knobs that came with it. Of course, the medallion I'm very proud of, because that's the main thing that shows off the radio itself. But these knobs are non-functional. They're just screwed in from the back. If you'll notice, you'll see a little light here. Let's see if I can. So that is actually the indicator light from the Raspberry Pi. I just thought it added a little character to the radio. So I have it positioned, you'll see later, so the light comes through. Now this toggle switch here, one thing nice about the Raspberry Pi is it only takes about 4 watts of power, runs on 5 volts DC. So most of us will just leave it run 24/7 because it literally pennies a month to run. But this switch here turns on and off the actual speakers. So by flipping it up, at night, or when I'm done, I just turn it off. I leave the station playing if I want, or I can turn off the station through some apps, which I'll show you. So this is the switch. volume controls over here on the side. And this is the big thing. This set of speakers has a subwoofer, which I'll show you when I take out the back. And that's why I'm using it in here, because I figured this enclosure would make a nice subwoofer enclosure so I can control the bass. That's full bass. And then bring it up. So that makes it real nice for listening. Now I forgot to mention that the software downstairs in the server is running what's called Logitech Media Server. There used to be a Slim Devices, then it went to Squeezebox, and now Logitech bought it out and they changed the software name, if you will, to Logitech Media Server. So that's running downstairs. That's where all my music is. My music is actually on a 300 gigabyte. There's 103 gigabytes of music on a 300 gigabyte 2.5 inch hard drive. Now that's the type of hard drive you'll see in a laptop. So that's in the little enclosure I have plugged into the media server, and that has all my music. Now what's nice about the Logitech Media Server is you can control it using different apps. So this is an app for my phone, so you can see I can scroll through, and I could locate my music by artist, album, whatever I want. Let's see what I got here. Here's A Taste of Honey, It'll Hurt. Then I hit play. So that's A Taste of Honey. That's not a by Heart. So that's on the Billboard Top 100. So this is the nice thing. I can control start and stop. I can, oh, that's Andy Gibbs. Okay. I can change the volume. Okay. And I can repeat. Another nice thing I like about this system is when I go in, I can pick random mix. So that's the server downstairs allows me to pick a random mix. You pick the genre you want it to mix, and then you can either mix it by song, by albums, by artist, or so on. That's sweet. It puts 10 or 12 songs onto the player, and then just continually loads new songs so that you have continuous playback of your music. Okay. So another app, that one by the way on the phone was called Squeezer, and it is free for the Google Play Store. Another app from the Google Play Store is called Orange Squeeze. This one I did have to pay for, but this one's kind of cool, and it acts as the same way as the other one, but of course it's much bigger. Has a few more functions to it too. Whoops. One of the nice things that I like about this internet radio, if you will, and that's what we call it now, is internet radio, is the radio app, if you will. So you click on the radio button here. Whoops. Never works when you're filming, does it? And then you can go through and pick, let's pick local. So these would be my local stations. If you want FM, AM, or internet only, I usually stick with internet only. Everything from police calls to college radio, you name it. I guess they're not broadcasting right now. Oh, here it is, play. You have to hit play. So that's this app here. I do have in my radio setup my presets. So throughout the day, these are the stations that I'm usually going to more often than not. Play my smooth jazz.
2 weeks in December.
I think the real kick here, though, to be honest with you, is you're listening to a 1920s radio. Hey, let's listen to some old-time radio.
Well, you're referring to Charlie. Very good. Hopeless picture. He sounds a little drab. Oh, he is all of that. All of that.
Edgar Bergen. He's too old for me, isn't he?
Too old for you. He's too old for Dave May-Witty. Here he is now. Hello, Bergen. Hello. Well, hello.
Now, one more final app. I don't want to bore you, but this is on my Windows 8.1 laptop. It's called Squeeze Remote. It's another paid app, but I like this one too because it allows me to use the full laptop for controlling. So again, and with these, what I forgot to mention is you can control each individual player. It's a touchscreen, dummy. So what you can do is you can pick the player that you want to control. So I have 3 different players, so I can pick the player that I want to control, and then I can sync them or adjust each one individually to a different station. There's a bio screen here that typically when I'm playing my music, it will go online and pick up the bio from the recording artist. That's about it. What I'm going to do now is turn it around and show you the back end of this with all the guts in it. But again, I'm thoroughly enjoying this setup, and sometimes I just come up here and this is our little landing on the second floor. And read a book and listen to some music, or listen to some old-time radio if I want. So I hope you're enjoying this. Let's take a look at the back. This is the back end of the radio with a solid back piece put on. I have found when I first did this, I didn't have a back piece on there. It didn't come with one, and what I gathered was most of the sound was escaping, if you will, from the back. Although it's against the wall, it didn't sound right. And I remember building my own speakers many years ago when I was a Ute. And the back and the insulation inside is very important for sound. You want that encapsulation, if you will, for a nice bass. So putting the back on is important. This is a volume control. Okay, this is the back end of the Atwater Kent radio. Down here is the subwoofer, and then I mounted 2 speakers on these pieces of wood to face out through the speaker grill, if you will, or speaker cloth, I guess you'd say. I have a power cord down here that basically, so I only have one cord coming in, and then I have the power supply for the actual computer plugged in, and then the power for the PC speakers. I have a network cable coming in. Although this Raspberry Pi will run on Wi-Fi with a little adapter, you always want the better, more reliable, more stable signal of a hardwired. So I always, the house has been pre-wired when I bought it for networking, so I use that cable. Now up here, I'll zoom in and adjust the camera so you can see a little better. Is the actual Raspberry Pi. I have some wood here. Just what I'm doing is just gimmicky. The Raspberry Pi has lights on it, you can see here, and so I wanted those lights to kind of shine through this what do you call it, paper, parchment paper that I have up here, so that you can see the lights flickering through the parchment paper, give it a little effect. That's the actual Raspberry Pi. Again, a $35 credit card size PC. I did buy an optional third-party aftermarket digital to analog converter for the audio signal. I think this is $7 shipped from China. Although the Raspberry Pi can output an analog signal, it's not the best signal in the world, so they recommend some third-party adapters. Basically, this amplified the sound volume greatly, and they did clean up some of the signal. The network cable comes in here, power comes in over here. As I say that, you can't see that. Power comes in over here, and this is the SD card. The Raspberry Pi, it's called a core player, is the image or distribution. It's one file that you open up and install on the card, plug it in, you're ready to play. That's how easy it is. It's very small too. So this goes up into here like this. Whoops. And then that kind of gives some light flickering to the through the parchment paper. This is the volume control for the speakers, mounted in back, and it also powers them on and off.